as of today, the House Financial Services Committee just got a whole lot more exciting, which perhaps considering its content generally is not that surprising, but it is very important. And now it has some new members that are up to the task of regulating and sometimes sticking it to the banks and related services. So they have new freshman congresswomen, a new leader, and that is quite exciting when you consider who is involved. Now we're gonna get down to the things that they have already said about what they will do on that committee, but first, for those who haven't or aren't familiar with it, the Financial Services Committee has formal responsibility to oversee the Federal Reserve and the Securities and Exchange Commission. It has regular opportunities to interrogate top US financial officials. It is one of the key committees that give banks their freedom or reins them in. And there was a great quote about one of the newest additions, which is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, saying with Ocasio-Cortez on the committee, it is plausible that in the near future, the US public could see a Democratic socialist publicly grill, for instance, the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Which that just gives me tingles.
Yeah, so let me jump in. Although she might not identify as a Democratic socialist, one of my favorite moments with Elizabeth Warren was when she was grilling an executive from Wells Fargo.
Yes.
I highly recommend, if you didn't see that, to go back and watch it, because it gives you a sense of what it's like to have members of Congress fight for the consumers, for the American people, and really hold banks accountable for their actions. Like it was an incredible hearing, and the way that she grilled that executive was amazing.
Exactly.
What was the Consumer Product Financial Board? What was her?
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which has been dismantled essentially by Mick Mulvaney, who was the acting.
Mick Mulvaney's running it. He's running it because he cares about you. Right? Yeah.
So right now, a woman by the name of Kathy Kraninger is running it, and she has absolutely no experience whatsoever. She considers Mick Mulvaney to be a mentor of hers, although after the Senate confirmed her to lead it, she deviated from Mick Mulvaney's policies a little bit, but for the most part, he had dismantled it before he left, overseeing the consumer financial.
One of the great things that Elizabeth Warren did soon after getting to the Senate was challenge, banking executives. And I remember I was sitting here talking about it with Cenk. There was immediately a story afterwards with unnamed sources saying, "Hey, the campaign's over. Now this is ridiculous. Now she needs to be serious and get about governing." So right away, and we're seeing the same sort of thing with that's going to happen to AOC.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth Warren didn't have a incredibly cool nickname, which will stay with her for her life, which helps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I really think
she tried with E-War. But it didn't last. That's not true. That is not actually. Don't spread that. Trump will start using it.
E-war, it's not bad.
It's not bad actually.
Not bad.
It's pretty terrible.
She should do it. I like it. So what are we going to get out of these new members? So now that they're on there, what is their philosophy going in? Well, let's get some quotes from some of the members. The first is AOC. If we could bring up this tweet. You're gonna see, I wanna be very clear about how successful the work of grassroots organizers and activists have been in helping progressives secure appointments to the powerful Financial Services Committee. It starts, as with many amazing developments, with everyday people paying attention. And so you have to give credit to the Justice Democrats that were pushing on social media, put pressure on them. We here on the various shows on the network, we're very specifically pushing for particular people to be on particular committees, including AOC on that committee. And many of you helped to put pressure on those who would actually be doing those decisions. So thank you for doing that. We don't get progress without good leaders and good people actually pushing for progress. But she goes on to say, "I cannot stress how important this moment is. Dems are putting members who rejected corporate campaign money on a committee overseeing Wall Street, all because everyday people donated to our campaigns and they started to pay attention and became activists in Congress."
Her tweets are so incredibly well written. Like it just stands out because I mean they're punctuated right and they tell a little. But they tell a little 280 character story. Like they deliver, in contrast, obviously.
You know what, Ben? She really needs to make a decision though about whether she wants to govern or be a Twitter star.
Oh, well.
That's deep. That's deep. I could see you being in leadership.
I don't actually think that, in case you guys missed the story that I'm referencing last week, Politico, I believe, published this piece on how some Democrats are criticizing her and her behavior on Twitter.
Yeah, and I would argue that not only is that a false dichotomy, but they might indeed help each other out.
Exactly.
Well, there's also
crazy idea.
But quickly, we know, I'm sure, and you probably mentioned it, but dovetailing with that story is another story about Democrats afraid that she will name them on Twitter.
Yes. Politico, yeah.
Right, it's the same concept.
Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah, that I would be scared. Okay, let's go to more though. She says it's a huge win. Obviously there's work to do. There are other money committees, including Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, etc. But we've got one down. Before we had 0. Keep paying attention, chipping into campaigns, and being activists. It works. So that's AOC. You also have Rashida Tlaib, who's gonna be joining the committee, and Ayanna Pressley, who said, to anyone that's ever come home to an eviction notice, felt overwhelmed by student debt, or worked the 2nd and 3rd shift, when I learned that I was appointed to the Financial Services Committee tonight, I thought of you. We belong everywhere. I'll never stop fighting for you. And I also want to give a little bit of credit to the woman who's going to be leading that committee now. This is Maxine Waters, who AOC said on Twitter she's very excited to be working with. 2 quotes from her. First, and this mirrors one of the things that AOC's been talking about on Twitter, that many people on the Democratic and Republican side wanted to get on these committees, not because they had this fervent drive to make a mark in that area, but because they're powerful. And so if you get on those committees, people will donate to you. And if you're on the Wall Street committee, maybe Wall Street will donate to you. Well, Maxine Waters gave a speech and said, this was known as the Juice Committee. There's no more juice in this committee. That's a great way of putting it. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people on the committee that still would love some juice, I'm sure. But she also said, the CEOs of the banks now are saying, what can we do to stop Maxine Waters? Because if she gets in, she's going to give us a bad time. I have not forgotten that you undermined our communities. I have not forgotten that you sold us these exotic products, had a sign on the dotted line for junk. What I am going to do to you is fair. I'm going to do to you what you did to us.
Like, okay, so we don't know.
We still have to see.
No, I know we have to see. My reaction is purely in regard to the strength in that statement. You know, look, I want to make a statement about what I'm seeing in political campaigns that bothers me, and it's all about, hey, in this Me Too movement, we got to support female candidates, period. But no, I actually disagree with that. I think that's insulting, and it undermines what women like me have been asking for. We want our policy proposals to be taken into consideration. I'm putting myself in this conversation, right? And when I say we, I mean women, right? Women in the political world who have really good ideas, who actually want to fight for the American people. Those are the candidates that deserve a shot, that deserve to be heard. This notion of, I'm just gonna support a candidate because she's a woman. No, what are the ideas? Is she gonna be a fighter? Does she have the right policy proposals? Is she strong, right? And so this kind of strength, especially in regard to the financial sector, excites me.
Yeah.
Especially when you're hearing about politicians, mentioning the issues involving student loan debt and the housing market and communities that have been destroyed. Like, these are issues that have been ignored for far too long, and I just love hearing our lawmakers draw some attention to it. That's all I'm saying.
The big quotes could end up not actually bearing fruit, but the thing is, you guys have become members, you support us, we're here, we're not going anywhere, we're gonna be watching. And we're gonna see what they push for and what they don't push for. And honestly, like, I love that we're talking about, being on these committees to get the big donations, because there's so many things in government that just seem insane to people who don't have any of the power. Like, the idea that you could be on this committee and take money from the banks is ludicrous. The idea that you could be on energy or environmental committees and take money from fossil fuel industries is insane.
Right.
And hopefully, as you have these great examples of people like AOC and others who are rejecting that money and doing better because of it, not surviving despite it, but doing better specifically because of that choice, I hope that will inspire more to do the same.
It's almost as if you took the money out of politics, you would strengthen the democracy.
Almost.
Yeah.
And as they've all been saying, and I think she was talking about today on Twitter, like, you are freed up by taking, it's not building you up, the money from these corporations. They are chains dragging you down and forcing you to change your positions and vote in ways that betray your principles. Get rid of those chains and actually be the person that you thought you would someday be when you first became interested in politics and thought, maybe someday I will run. Not someday I will run and I will compromise every single value I hold just so that I don't get primary the next time around, just so that I have the money to fend it off.
Keep in mind though that what inevitably, unless there's a structural change and we get money out of politics, the problem is going to be that they're going to be running against people who will then be incredibly well funded, and that funding allows you to misrepresent people's facts. Funding for or tell a story the other person can't tell. I mean, that's what happens when you which is ultimately what corrupted it in the first place, which was probably, in some cases, dastardly people, a word I'm sure I've never said out loud, but decent people who were involved in government because they were committed to a better government, and then thinking, well, I got to take this money because my opponent's taking this money and I don't want to be at a 15, 20, 25 to 1 disadvantage when I run for election. So I'm a good person, but I'm still going to take their money, and then inevitably you get corrupted.
I'm sure that there will be some on the left who will take the money and make that very argument. And we saw a little bit of it in 2016. But I think, wouldn't you argue that the climate is different right now? I mean, I think that it's very possible for someone to turn away, let's say, corporate PAC money or these giant, campaign contributions from corporate interests, and focus more on the people, right? Small dollar donations. I mean, we've seen it happen with a number of candidates at this point, and they've been very successful in raising the money they need.
I'm curious if that, it does feel different, but will it stay different? Will it stay different when we don't have Donald Trump to sort of run against and motivate people to make those small dollar donations? And for some it will continue, and in some areas it will continue, but we can't just think that the problem is solved because they say it's solved. The first part, I didn't actually like her statement as much as you guys did. I love the first part. I love that the juice is gone, right? I do like Trump. I don't think that it's ever a good idea to suggest and give a window into that I'm gonna punish you because you said bad things about me. Right, which was the one part of her statement.
She pointed out, I would say, what she would probably see as structural financial assaults against communities across the country.
I like that part. I just meant
the
like
first part.
The first part. She included that, the part about they're gonna Maxine Waters is gonna come after us, and so I would leave myself out of it. I liked most of it. She opened up a window to that slightly, but that's all right.
Okay,
it was good. It was good, and mostly we're seeing strength everywhere. Let me just say really quick, because I traveled this last week with some very mainstream Democratic friends. One a conservative Democrat, but he's and they're very, very dismissive of Bernie Sanders. My argument, I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. Cenk does, but I think he has a chance. I think it's crazy to say that he doesn't have a chance.
There's no chance.
None. They're just completely dismissive of his work, dismissive of his chances, dismissive of everything. But they're not dismissive of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In fact, a few of them are enormously impressed with her, right? And so one guy said to me, he goes, every day I just love it. Love everything she does, right? And so it's a suggestion to me that one, the value of having a new blood, and particularly this new blood and this new voice and this sort of unabashed, courageous new blood, and that also she is that her power is likely to sustain itself, especially because she appears to be eager to do the work. So I was encouraged by that.
I think what she has that is undeniable is her likability, right? Because she is a fighter and she's strong and she's unapologetic for what she expects of the country and what her beliefs are, but she doesn't come across in a way, like even Ben Shapiro of all people was like, you can't help but like her when you see the way that she reacts and responds to critics.
He said that, I didn't see that he said that.
She reacts with this sense of humor that's so admirable and inspiring for someone like me, right? Like for me, I'll respond with salt. And that makes someone unlikable, and I get that. Whereas she will take it and respond in like this humorous way that I think makes people want to listen to her.
Yeah, I think that's really true, and it's also true not in the same way, and he's certainly not as funny. I'm not knocking him, but like Ro Khanna also has this way of presenting an argument in a way that just doesn't. There's a tone and a style and it's a tough line to toe. But when you can be aggressive and strong, and somehow also not petty and divisive.
Right.
And they both have it.
Yeah, I don't.
No, you don't.
And the depressing thing is, I've read, I don't know how many examples of it. I've learned nothing. I've literally learned nothing.
On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.